Hi guys, this is Hirosaki. This story is all about what if Kurama travels back in time to save Naruto. To make a tragedy, you break something beautiful and frame the pieces. To make a victory, you break something mighty and rebuild it piece by piece. To make a life, you glue the pieces together and hope for the best. Kurama's still getting the hang of this human thing, but given that he's 30 years back in time with catastrophes to prevent and a blonde brat to save, he'll have to figure things out on the fly. Luckily, living with Naruto's been good for his ability to improvise, if nothing else. Before we start, kindly like and subscribe to this channel, and look over the description box for the author of this amazing storyline. Welcome aboard. Chapter 7, Impetus. Maybe it's the familiarity of Konoha, the well-remembered hum of chakra from hundreds of shinobi all gathered together and more or less at peace, but Kurama sleeps far more deeply and for far longer than he intends to. When he finally opens his eyes, there's sunlight slanting through the window, and the bustle of people is clear even from beyond the glass. Dreams are a fading tremor in his composure, bits of grief and horror already sliding away, and Kurama lets out a heavy breath, pushing his hair out of his face with one slightly shaky hand as he sits up. He's spent a good portion of his last 100 years of existence sleeping. So far, being locked up in a human's body is anything but riveting, but if this keeps happening, he thinks he might swear off on it altogether. At least when he's awake, he can distract himself. His unconscious mind isn't so forgiving. Hard on the heels of that thought comes another, and this one is thankfully far more heartening. Naruto is somewhere out in Konoha, a child with sunbright hair and sky-blue eyes and a smile warmer than anything. Honestly, Kurama doesn't even need to be the target of that smile. All he wants is to know that it's real, it exists. Maybe it can never quite be his again, but he doesn't want to consider that. His determination is holding steady in the face of his Naruto's last smile, his last request, but too much and he might falter. Too many reminders and he thinks he'll just break. How can humans be so weak when he knows they can also be incredibly strong? But Kurama can't help a faint smile as he buries his face in his upraised knees. They can be strong. So strong. It was Naruto who taught him that, powering through every obstacle set before him with determination and willpower alone. Despite Naruto's parentage, despite his birth, he still had to pull himself up from nothing, from a mire of discrimination and hatred, and where anyone else would have been overwhelmed with darkness, Naruto emerged entirely untouched. With a true understanding of the darker sides of humanity, a unique sensitivity to others' troubles, but untainted. Kurama himself is so dark that he all but drips malice, because that's who and what he is. Naruto was the one to show him that he could be more. And he will be. In this he'll play the hero like Naruto wanted, though he suspects it will be closer to Itachi's version than Naruto's own. He's not cut out to be a center stage hero, not really. Pride and arrogance and power can only carry him so far, and while Kurama has those in spades, he's lacking the other crucial bits. Like compassion and selflessness, and the ability to love so freely. He loves Naruto. Loved the sage. No one else has ever quite managed to make the cut. But he does love Naruto. And today he'll finally see proof that the boy is still alive. That thought brings a lightness with it, a surge of determined happiness that Kurama hasn't felt in a very, very long time. It propels him out of bed without hesitation, even when the sunlight would otherwise tempt him to simply bask in it for a few hours. He isn't hoping for much: a glimpse, a glance, maybe the chance to catch sight of Naruto's smile if he's really lucky, but anything will be better than the nothingness that haunts him right now. Better than the lack that's eating away at his gut like a particularly vicious acid. Naruto was his first friend. The sage was a father, but Naruto won himself a place in Kurama's regard, wanted to, worked for it, and didn't give up until Kurama had acknowledged him. For so long Kurama was the creature that everyone feared, a monster and a natural disaster and a mindless beast to chain up and lock away, but Naruto learned and realized and set him free, and maybe a large part of Kurama's love can be linked to gratitude, but he doesn't care. He loves Naruto, and so he'll save him. His stomach is growling again, but Kurama ignores it, slipping out of the inn and into the throng of people. The sun is high above him, more than halfway across the sky, and the realization that he slept for so long is a little unnerving. Almost 12 hours, if he had to guess, and while it's hardly a sleep of years the way he sometimes rested as a bijou, it's a long time. Time he could have spent near Naruto. The crowd is pushy, heading every direction, so Kurama keeps to the edges and picks his way around carts and little knots of stationary civilians. Several shinobi in the midst of things eye him carefully as they pass, but Kurama ignores them, letting his senses stretch. There's an overwhelming hum of chakra to Konoha, one he'd honestly forgotten. He can't remember the last time he felt so many shinobi in one place. Years, 3 of them at least, he thinks, and it's disconcerting now. Still, Naruto's chakra is unique, bright and strong no matter how old he happens to be, and intimately familiar. Kurama reaches out, spreads his senses over the village even as he walks, and concentrates. There, like the sudden flicker of a bonfire lit, flames climbing towards the sky and stray sparks leaping heavenward, and Kurama's Jinchuriki finally comes into focus. Young. He's young, so young, the blaze of his chakra undiluted and barely touched, but Kurama comes to a halt at the edge of the street and closes his eyes regardless. Because just feeling it, just sensing it, is like emerging from darkness and turning his face to the summer sun. Because that's Naruto, so vivid and alive, and the mere touch of his chakra drives away the memory of a familiar body falling. One touch, and all Kurama can think is alive. Damn it all, but you're alive. You're here. His eyes are hot again, and there's a curious itchy ache in his chest, right near his heart. Kurama wraps his arms around himself, fingers and sharp nails digging into his elbows as he grips them, but the little bit of pain means nothing. Naruto is alive. He's halfway across the village, surrounded by equally familiar chakra signals, and though he's young, he's not that young. 6 years old, Kurama would guess, if his memory isn't failing him. Just starting the academy, just learning to use his chakra. The academy. Suddenly, Kurama wants to curse. There aren't any children on the street. Kurama hadn't really marked it before, because he's so unused to there being any people on the street, but he can't see or hear a single child above a certain age. The cluster of chakra signals around Naruto is tightly packed, closely grouped, and that can mean only one thing. Damn it. He'd forgotten that Naruto has classes. And, despite his frequent skipping, Naruto does actually end up in class more often than not. After all, Irika is a terror, and one of the few people Naruto respects enough to obey. With a low groan, Kurama drags a hand through his hair, and leans back against the corner of the building behind him, sighing irritably when red strands simply tumble back over his eyes. This is not part of his plan. It's only about an hour after noon, and that means he still has at least 2 hours to wait until Naruto is released. He could just head to the academy and try to peer through the windows to see his Jinchuriki, but he's fairly certain the Hokage would take that the wrong way. Not to mention he'd feeling like a fucking creeper loitering around the school to catch a glimpse of a 6-year-old boy. So, he's got several hours to kill, even though the urge to see Naruto is like an itch beneath his skin. Hours left in a village that holds only ghosts brought back to life through Naruto's sacrifice, with nothing to do, and a restlessness growing inside him that would, in other circumstances, lead to him uprooting trees and breaking boulders just to burn off some frustration. Actually, that's not such a bad idea. Well, it kind of is. He's trying to keep a low profile, and wrecking one of Konoha's training grounds isn't the best way to go about it, but Kurama's finding it hard to care at the moment. Decided, he turns and nearly crashes into the man standing right behind him. Kurama leaps back with a yelp, pulse suddenly rabbiting in his veins and his heart in his throat. His shoulder slams painfully into the corner of the building, and the sudden lack of anything solid behind him almost puts him on his ass. At the last moment though, he manages to get his feet under him and staggers to a stop. "Don't fucking do that," he snarls. "You moss-haired bastard, are you trying to give me a heart attack?" One gray eye blinks innocently at him, almost hidden by the orange book held open in front of the man's face. Ma, I don't know what you're talking about," Hound protests, sounding faintly wounded. He's dressed like a normal jounin again, clearly off A&BU duty, but his appearance here can't be a coincidence. "That lichen creeping into your brain too?" Kurama huffs, crossing his arms over his chest and glaring at the other man. "If you keep sneaking up on me, ho." "Hataki," he cuts in smoothly. "Hataki Kakashi." "Right. A&BU and their secret identities." Kurama can't help rolling his eyes. If they really want to keep their identities from other people, they should probably start wearing hoods or crap like that. Especially when their hairstyles are as unsubtle as Kakashi's. "Hataki," he allows grumpily. "Keep sneaking up on me, and I won't be responsible for whatever holes get punched in you." "Sorry, have we met before?" Kakashi asks guilelessly. Kurama stares flatly at him for a long moment, then growls, turns on his heel, and plunges back into the crowd. He doesn't have much hope of losing the jounin, but, well, points for trying, right? And if he keeps standing there, he'll likely attempt to put a fist through the man's face. As entertaining as that would be, it definitely wouldn't keep him in the Hokage's good graces, questionable as those are right now. Before he can even consider the possibility of his escape being successful, a shoulder brushes his, and easy as you please, Kakashi falls into step beside him. The book is gone, but he's got his hands tucked into his pockets and his eye is crinkled, as if he's smiling lazily. He casts a sideways glance at Kurama, either not noticing or not caring that he's being pointedly ignored, and says, "You know, some people might consider that rude. I gave you my name. Aren't you going to give me yours in return?" Kurama gives him another growl, but knowing how stubborn the bastard can be, manages to unclench his jaw enough to get out, "Uzumaki Kurama." A passing shinobi who's vaguely familiar in Inuzuka, given the pair of nindogs trailing after her, gives him a sharp look, but Kurama doubts she heard him over the sound of the crowd. Her dogs are giving him suspicious looks too, and he bares his teeth at them. The dogs recoil and the woman bristles, but before she can approach, a hand closes around Kurama's elbow. "It's the blood," Kakashi says, almost cheerfully. "If you don't want everyone with a good noise jumping away from you, you might want to change." Kurama blinks at him, caught off guard, and then remembers the not quite neat way he'd dispatched several of the bandits. Han's robe is probably splattered with blood, but he hasn't cared enough to notice. Fur doesn't have these kinds of problems. After all, lick it, and it's clean, or brush it if it's really bad, and then you're good. Clothes seem inconvenient, what with how washing them takes so much time and effort. Well, that's one way to kill time, Kurama supposes. "There a river?" he asks gruffly. "I can." "Maybe you should just buy another set," Kakashi proposes, cheerfully steamrolling over his question as he steers Kurama down a side street. "And possibly shoes." Despite how cold his feet have been getting, Kurama gives Kakashi a skeptical look. He's about as much a part of nature as any tree, and he does just fine as he is. He can't see that strapping flimsy bits of wood and fabric to his feet will improve much. In return, Kakashi just gives him another smile. With an aggravated sigh, Kurama gives in for the moment. He supposes it will be nice not to drown in his clothes, and given the number of shinobi with sensitive noses in Konoha, foremost among which is his current escort, it's probably best not to waltz around smelling like dried blood unless he's trying to make a statement. Kakashi seems to notice the sudden lack of protest, because he lets go of Kurama's arm to simply walk next to him again. "I was under the impression that moss was green," he says, directing them towards a small shop. Kurama blinks, caught off guard. "What?" he demands, baffled. "What the hell are you talking about?" "You compared my hair to moss," Kakashi reminds him, and despite the statement his tone is still upbeat. Moss is green. Ever seen an old oak? Kurama counters waspishly. That silvery moss that hangs down? That's what your hair looks like. As soon as they're through the door, he pulls away from the other man and heads for the nearest stack of folded uniforms. Most of them are Konoha's standard deep blue, but for all that Kurama's an ally, he's not a Konoha shinobi. He bypasses the blue, reaching instead for plain shades of brown. Better for blending in than black, after all, especially if he's heading northeast. The forests thin out through lightning country, and there are a lot of mountains between him and the mountain's graveyard. Dirt color can only help. In the end, he gets several of each, because knowing his opponents he's practically guaranteed to lose whatever he wears into a fight. Between that and a haori made of heavier cloth, it uses up a good chunk of the Ryo he has left, and Kurama frowns down at the much thinner envelope. Damn. Humans and their inconvenient currency. This would be a lot easier if he could just take what he needed. But Naruto would smack him over the head for thinking like that, Kurama knows, and he pockets the remainder with a sigh. At least with warmer clothes, he won't have to worry about getting lodging, and he's perfectly happy hunting his own food if he needs to. The more he can avoid humans on his mission, the better. After all, who knows what the Akatsuki's response will be when Kakuza reports in? Maybe they'll turn to hunting him instead. It takes effort not to bare his teeth in a dangerous grin. Honestly, Kurama wouldn't be entirely opposed. That would make his job a lot easier. Ignoring the way Kakashi is positioned pointedly beside the shoe rack, Kurama mutters a quick thank you to the man behind the counter and heads for the door, bag slung over his shoulder. He'll have to find some ink and scrolls to seal it all away. There's no way he's going to burden himself down with a pack, not when he knows from experience how easy it is for such things to get left behind. A quick check of the sun proves that barely an hour has passed, and Kurama restrains a frustrated snarl, reaching out automatically. Naruto's chakra is still blazing, but there's an edge to it that Kurama knows to be frustration, and he's moving. Sparring, probably, Kurama thinks, pausing on the street corner and closing his eyes. He can't tell who Naruto is fighting against, since the chakra signatures are so tightly packed, but frustration means it's someone better. It also means that Kurama wants nothing more than to swoop in and kick the little brat's ass on Naruto's behalf, although he knows that Naruto wouldn't take kindly to it. Still, it would mean seeing Naruto, speaking to Naruto, and that's more than enough to make the thought tempting. He wants to go to Naruto right now. Wants more than anything to just sweep in, snatch him up, and carry him away. But that would be too much interference. Kurama knows how this works. Each action is tiny, meaningless little bits of happenstance, like pebbles sliding down the side of a mountain range. But pebbles turn to stones, stones turn to rocks, rocks turn to boulders, and a single careless step can start an avalanche that will change the face of the entire range. He can't risk that, not when Naruto is the one at stake. You look like you're packing for somewhere cold, Kakashi points out, jolting Kurama from his thoughts as the Jounin meanders up beside him. Planning a trip? The man does have the ability to be subtle, Kurama's even seen him use it. That, however, was decidedly not subtle at all, and he gives Kakashi another doubtful glance. When he just gets a crinkle-eyed smile again, he grunts and looks away. The temptation to knock the man on his ass is nearly overwhelming. He's not entirely sure how Naruto ever resisted, especially given he spent a solid year training with him. Kurama would have committed homicide within the first week. Not like I'll always be able to find a town with a convenient bandit problem, he counters. Might as well be prepared to sleep outside most of the time. Kakashi hums, Ika Ika book, making a reappearance as he causally flips it open and buries his face in the pages. I'm surprised a shinobi got caught without money or extra clothes, he says idly. Bad luck. Bad planning, more like, Kurama mutters before he can force himself to shut up. Catching the sharp look Kakashi gives him, though it's almost entirely hidden, he sighs and clarifies, I got angry and jumped into a fight. Bastard nearly fried me, and I woke up with nothing. It's true, if a little out of order. That doesn't make the sharpness go away, but the book comes up a little higher to hide Kakashi's expression fully. Must have been strong. Strong enough to give Kakashi himself pause, the first time around, but Kurama can hardly say that. It leaves a sour taste in his mouth anyway, remembering the fight with Kakuzu. Kurama spent the last 5 years fighting Kaguya herself. One of her little mindless minions should be nothing. But in a new body with new limits, still completely off balance from Naruto's murder and his own trip through time, he'd been stupid. Stupid and reckless, and nearly cost them all their victory. Nearly wasted Naruto's sacrifice, and the very idea of it makes Kurama feel faintly sick. The stupid and reckless parts probably aren't going to change. Kurama's prone to the latter, and with Naruto in mind he keeps resorting to the former, but he won't let the chance that Naruto died to create be squandered so easily. Next time he faces the Akatsuki members, he's not going to let them win. Yeah, he agrees gruffly. Decently strong. But it won't save the bastard next time I see him. Kakashi's gaze lingers on him, thoughtful and considering, but Kurama ignores it. He starts walking again, letting his feet carry him forward blindly without any destination in mind, and pays no heed to Kakashi following him. The problem of the Akatsuki is still at the forefront of his mind, despite Kakashi's interruption yesterday, and he needs to come up with a way to get them out of their base so he can go crush the Geto Mazo into really ugly gravel. It's not like he can duck in, shout Jinchuriki over there, and have them stampede out. It will, unfortunately, take planning and cunning and subtlety, and while Kurama's decent at all of those, he doesn't want to be. He'd much rather just wade in and start tearing out throats. Still, if Haydn isn't there yet and likely won't be for a while, given that he can't be more than 13 right now, that means he won't have to deal with the zealot. And there aren't that many missing nin on the Akatsuki's level, so if he moves quickly enough, he won't have to deal with Kakuzu's newest partner, either. Pain and Konan, Kisame, Kakuzu, Sasori, Zetsu, and possibly Obito, that's who he's up against. Orochimaru too, he remembers with a faint grimace because... well, that's an interesting thought. Itachi isn't a part of Akatsuki yet, the same way Deidara and Haydn aren't. And while Kurama has less than zero fondness for most Uchiha with the possible exception of Sasuke, and even their Kurama would claim some sort of Stockholm Syndrome or bleed through of Naruto's feelings before he'd admit to any sort of genuine affection if he can spin it so that the Uchiha massacre never happens, it will remove an extremely powerful member from the Akatsuki, and Kurama's very much in favor of that. Itachi might have always been on their side, but without the massacre. Without the massacre, Sasuke might never have the same relationship with Naruto. Fuck, Kurama thinks, scowling down at the ground. There's no way to win this, is there? But, maybe it can work. Maybe. Even without Sasuke as a blindly driven avenger and stuck-up little shit, surely it will still work. Naruto will still be Naruto, even if he doesn't have his rivalry with Sasuke. Kurama's pretty fucking terrible at lying to himself, he's coming to realize. Huffing out an aggravated breath, Kurama halts and looks around, faintly surprised to find that it's darker than he had expected, the shadows longer. He's moved out of the village proper too, and the road is hard-packed earth under his feet. The academy building looms in front of him, the last few students and parents just departing. A few give him smiles, a few give him wary looks, but Kurama doesn't even notice. His gaze is caught on a small figure with bright blonde hair, seated on a swing off to the side. Naruto, he thinks, and just that sears through every nerve, ending like Kakuzu's lightning, but 1,000 times more pleasant. Full of hope, relief, joy, gratitude, because that's Naruto sitting right there, barely 100 feet from him. Naruto's chakra, bonfire bright, Naruto with his shoulders hunched, his head bowed. Naruto, who all but reeks of grief and loneliness and pain, with the faintest thread of anger and resentment buried almost too deep for Kurama to sense. There's no smile on his face, just blank unhappiness, and it feels so wrong that it makes Kurama's skin crawl. He'd forgotten this, he thinks, a little horrified, but mostly stunned. He'd forgotten, overlooked, dismissed what he knew of Naruto's childhood. Because he hadn't wanted to see it, hadn't wanted to remember that Naruto, for all his cheer and determination, wasn't always happy. Those smiles that Kurama loves so much, the real, meaningful ones, those only started happening regularly when Naruto gained his precious people. Right now, Naruto doesn't even really have Iruka. The man is still hovering at the edges, not quite a friend yet. There's only the Hokage whenever he can spare a moment. None of the other children will acknowledge Naruto, not with their parents' prejudice, and Naruto has nothing to smile about. He doesn't even have a reason to pretend he's happy because no one will look past the mask. And that aches. It hurts almost as much as Naruto's death, because this is a slow death for all that Naruto will recover. It's just a decay. A sickness leeching Naruto of joy, and that's so wrong that Kurama can't stand it. In an instant, everything shifts. Fuck not changing anything. Fuck not letting Naruto change. Fuck keeping things as they were. Obviously that didn't work the first time around. So why should Kurama keep clinging to it? Let this be the stone that starts the avalanche. Kurama couldn't care less. His Naruto is dead, sacrificed to save those he loved, and Kurama will never get him back. It was stupid and blind and base foolishness to believe he would. But the very core of his Naruto's heart and soul and unbreakable will, still exists. It's 30 paces in front of Kurama, grieving and lonely, and Kurama won't let that continue. It was one thing to let Naruto suffer through an unhappy childhood when Kurama couldn't do anything to help, and wouldn't have wanted to even if he could have. It's another entirely to stand by and watch while Naruto is in pain, and there's nothing at all in Kurama that's capable of doing that. He wouldn't get his Naruto back even if he kept the timeline exactly as it was. He can see that now. But surely he owes it to the boy, to the man, to give him even a small bit of joy. Surely, if he can bring even the smallest spark of light to Naruto's life right now, changing the past will be worth it. He takes a step forward, hardly even noticing Kakashi's stiffening posture beside him. One step and another, until he's standing right in front of the swing. Slowly, the blonde head lifts, and Kurama is gutted by the sight of blue eyes, a dozen shades darker than they should be. Dark with unhappiness, with sadness, and Kurama hates it. Taking a breath, he drops to one knee in front of the boy and says quietly, "What's your name, kid?" Naruto blinks at him for a moment before his eyes widen faintly, and he leans back. There's wariness in his gaze, even as he offers a bright and entirely fake smile and answers, "I'm Uzumaki Naruto, the next Hokage." It's so utterly, achingly familiar that Kurama can't help but smile, and that smile just widens when Naruto's own face lights up. How few genuine smiles must he get, that Kurama's unpracticed one makes him so happy? Chuckling softly, he reaches out and lightly ruffles Naruto's spiky hair. It feels impossibly soft against his fingers, and in a heartbeat Kurama's eyes are hot again. Something wet slips down his cheek, but he ignores it and laughs, soft and rough. "Another Uzumaki, huh?" "I thought so," he tells Naruto. "You've got your mom's chakra. I can feel it." Shock suffuses Naruto's face, wondering and disbelieving in equal measure. His mouth opens, works, but nothing comes out. He closes it, swallows, and tries again, and this time manages to squeak, You knew my mom?" Unable to resist for even one more second, Kurama reaches out, wraps his arms around Naruto, and drags him right off the swing. Pulls him into his lap, against his chest, and curls around him as much as he can, burying his face in blonde hair, and trying not to break down completely. "Yeah," he whispers to the boy, shock stiff in his arms. "I knew her when she was a little girl. I'm your uncle. I'm Uzumaki Kurama. We're family, and I promise, Naruto, I'm never going to leave you alone again." Slowly, carefully, so very tentatively, small arms lift and slide around his neck. When nothing happens, when Kurama's only reactions is to clutch him tighter, Naruto returns the hug, and it's as awkward as if he's never done it before. That's fine, Kurama thinks. He'll have plenty of time to show him in the future. 5 seconds. 5 seconds of Naruto's arms tightening around him, 5 seconds for Kurama to feel as if finally, he's come home. 5 seconds for hope of a better future to blossom, painful and fragile, in his chest. Then a strong hang snatches the back of his shirt and tears him away. Chapter 8, Degringolade. In all honesty, Kurama should have expected it. He knows where he stands, knows how shinobi villages work, knows that there's no way the Hokage would be alright with a complete stranger getting so close to Konoha's only Jinchuriki. Even so, the second Kurama feels Naruto ripped from his arms, every reasonable bit of his brain simply shuts down. He flies through the air with the force of the wrench, landing several yards away on all fours, and fury burns through him. There's only anger, only the white-hot pulse of desperation like a sun going nova in his soul. They're taking him away from me, he thinks, and nothing else. In a blur, he moves. Kakashi is no longer anything but an impediment, an enemy, standing between Kurama and Naruto. He barely notices the kunai in the Jounin's hand, barely feels the crackle of chakra exploding out to meet his own. Anger is a fiery shroud pulled across his eyes, a mask that leaves only targets. Baring his teeth, he slashes down, and Kakashi only just manages to knock him aside with a sharp kick. How dare you? Kurama roars, even as he lands and staggers a step. Whirling, he takes a menacing stride towards the man, crouched and ready with a wide-eyed Naruto behind him. What the fuck do you think you're doing? He's my family. Blue eyes flicker from Kakashi back to Kurama, wary but worried. Kurama stares at him, desperation knotting up his guts, and takes another step. Stay back, Kakashi warns sharply. You have no proof of anything. The Hokage isn't about to allow a complete stranger. Restraint snapping, Kurama snarls and throws himself forward, claws slashing downward and just skimming cloth as Kakashi leaps to the side. He's fast, and it's frustrating. Kurama lunges again, this time with a hard kick, but it doesn't connect. A dodge, another, and Kakashi leaps back again, but this time Kurama doesn't follow. It's a distraction, a diversion, and he won't fall for it. Instead, he lunges for Naruto, planning to snatch him up and run, but there's a blur. Kakashi appears directly in front of him, fist already swinging, and Kurama yelps as he goes reeling back from a haymaker to the jaw. Stranger? He echoes contemptuously when he gets his feet under him, and there's a cut on the inside of his cheek leaking blood. He spits it out, looking up to glare at the copy Nin. That little boy is the most precious thing to me in the entire world. If you try to keep me from him, Hatake, I'll have no problem burning this entire filthy village to the ground. Exaggeration, if only because Naruto loves this place so much, but Kurama isn't about to tell him that. Like this, balanced on the edge of overwhelming fury, his chakra surging and building like a volcano, Kurama honestly isn't sure what he would do to keep Naruto with him. There's no possible way he can leave Naruto. He won't. Baisuk, Kakashi says, low and sharp. Alert the Hokage. Go. From further back down the road, there's a flash of tan and blue, and a dog with a Konoha Hitayate around its neck bolts out of cover and away. Kurama curses, because that means he has minutes at best before the Hokage arrives, before the Hokage takes Naruto away, and desperation wars with fury as he glances between Kakashi and Naruto. It doesn't help that Naruto stares back at him, confused but not running, and there's an edge of hope to Blue Eyes that makes Kurama ache right down to his bones. Move, Kurama warns, because this is one of Naruto's precious people, or will be, and he can't do any less. It won't stop him from acting, if he's forced, but he can spare the breath for a warning. Hatake, move, and I won't kill you now. Just he's Kushina's son. He's family. Please. Kakashi's expression doesn't waver. He shifts, flipping the kunai around in his grip and centering his weight, and then reaches up. The slanted hitayate is pushed straight again, revealing spinning red and black, and a growl bubbles up in the back of Kurama's throat. Skin crawling faintly, he steps back, but that Sharingan follows him. The thought of it recording his every movement, dissecting his chakra, memorizing all of his tells, hiding the potential to completely strip him of his will. Kurama hates it. Hates that and what it stands for, hates the man who originally owned it, and all the grief he caused. Taking Obito down is definitely going to be a pleasure. Last chance, Hatake, he growls, and glances past the man again to look at Naruto, trying to tell him silently that everything's alright. There's a blur of speed and motion, and Kurama only just manages to wrench his attention back to Kakashi in time to leap aside, ducking under a slicing overhand swing of that kunai. He kicks out in return, aiming the ball of his foot directly at Kakashi's gut, but isn't surprised when it misses. Kakashi twists around it, free hand slashing out, and Kurama knocks it aside, drops to avoid another slash from the weapon, and then leaps straight up. He gathers up chakra even as he twists in the air, landing lightly in front of Naruto, and then slashes out towards his opponent, aiming downwards as carefully as he can. The shockwave ripples outward, striking the ground and tearing a deep trench as it flings earth and stone into the air, but Kakashi is too fast to catch like that. He throws himself up and over, and though it makes Kurama snarl, he gives ground, retreating from Naruto and leading Kakashi away from the boy. "You should surrender," Kakashi says coolly, even as his fingers flicker through the signs for a water jutsu. Naruto is a citizen of Konohagakure. I'm not about to let you threaten him. The Dragon of Water is exactly what Kurama expects of Kakashi, powerful, flashy, and nothing more than a distraction to cover the real attack. He snarls, fury twisting through him, and doesn't bother with signs as he grabs for his chakra and opens his mouth. A twister of fire streams out to meet the attack, and both jutsus explode as they collide. With a hissing shriek, steam fills the air, whirling out to cover both of them, but Kurama's ears are just as good as Kakashi's nose. He can hear the faintest scuff of a foot on the grass as the jounin charges, and twists away from a stabbing lunge. Surrender? He taunts, ducking the following kick and slipping out of the path of a lash of fire. Never. Naruto is the only reason I'm still alive, you bastard, and if you want me to give up on him you'll have to see me dead and buried first. Earth explodes up underneath him, and Kurama swears viciously, just barely managing to get his feet under him enough to leap over the grasping hands that reach for him. A hard slash downward and a brief shockwave dispels the clone, but the distraction is enough for Kakashi to close in. The kunai stabs forward, aimed at the center of mass, and Kurama is too close to dodge it fully. He tries regardless, wrenches back and twists hard, but he's only just landed and not quite steady on his feet. The short blade tears deep into the meat of his right bicep, scrapes bone, and is yanked away. Kurama traps a scream behind his teeth, only a muffled cry of pain escaping, but it throws him off balance enough that Kakashi's next kick connects hard with his gut and sends him reeling back. He doesn't want to kill Kakashi, he can't even imagine how the future will go without him there, but this is Naruto at stake. If he loses, they're going to lock him up, hide him away, and he'll never see Naruto again even if he manages to escape. The agony of that thought claws at him, and he imagines the future stretching out before him, completely devoid of his Jinchuriki's presence. Imagines Kaguya rising unhindered, Naruto dead as a sacrifice to her madness, with him unable to change anything. It can't be allowed. It can't be tolerated, and if Kurama has to put Kakashi in the hospital to buy enough time to get both himself and Naruto away, he'll do it. With a snarl that's equal parts rage, pain, and desperation, Kurama lets himself fall to gain distance, then rolls to his feet as Kakashi follows. The steam is dissipating quickly, bringing their battlefield back into view, and Kurama can feel more chakra signatures approaching. The Hokage's back up, no doubt, and it makes him hiss in aggravation. His arm aches with a fiery pain, and Kurama can hardly move it, but for all the skin he's wearing, he's not a human. He's not even really a shinobi, and he certainly doesn't have their limits. He needs to end this quickly, and for that he can't show restraint. Finding the correct balance of negative and positive chakra is as simple as breathing and just as familiar. Kurama summons the orbs into the air around him, small pinpoints of glittering light, and doesn't bother compressing them down into their usual form. A flick of his hand and the miniature Baijidama whirl out like foxfire, leaving bright afterimages behind, and streak towards Kakashi with deadly intent. Mismatched eyes widen, and Kakashi throws himself back, just managing to avoid the first one as it strikes the ground and detonates like an exploding tag multiplied tenfold. The earth shakes as the rest follow, filling the air with chips of stone and debris, but Kurama doesn't wait. He lunges after the jounin, mouth filling with raw chakra, and exhales another surge of flame that roars across the ground like a burning tide. Kunai and shuriken blur out of the haze, but Kurama takes a twisting leap over them, bounces off the ground, and drives a kick into Kakashi's side as hard as he can. The jounin goes flying, slamming into the tree where Naruto had been sitting, and with a victorious cry Kurama lunges after him, claws out. Before he can reach the man, Kakashi plants his feet and brings his hand up. Chakra surges like a geyser, then steadies, and the sound of 1,000 birds fills the smoky air. Apparently Kakashi's done holding back as well. This time when Kurama summons his Baijidama, he doesn't hesitate. The balanced chakra swirls and compresses, spinning madly in his palm, and Kurama brings his hand lashing forward, ready to release it and end this fight. With a sudden burst of speed, Kakashi mirrors him, Raikiri bright and deadly in one hand. Then a small voice cries, "No!" And before Kurama can even blink there's a tiny, fragile body planted squarely between them, arms outstretched as if to hold them back. Sheer, mind-numbing terror gives Kurama the deceptive speed of his bijou form, able to match even Naruto in Sage mode. With a cry that tears at his throat, he flicks the Baijidama away and changes his lunge into a grab, dragging Naruto around behind him even as he turns to give Kakashi his back. Half a second too late, Kakashi comprehends what's happening and makes a desperate attempt to pull away, but for all his genius and reflexes, there's no time, no possibility of aborting the strike or doing anything more than diverting it slightly. On his own, Kurama could dodge it. He's fast enough, adrenaline humming and heart pounding, but Naruto is right there, and Kurama can't grab him quickly enough. He can't move, because if he does Naruto will be right in Kakashi's path, and not for anything will Kurama let harm come to this boy. Kurama has a fraction of a heartbeat to brace himself before lightning tears through his chest, Kakashi's kunai punching a hole right through him. The smell of charred meat rises, and agony grays Kurama's vision, but even as he staggers, coughing up blood, he doesn't allow himself to falter. He's already healing, can feel bone and muscle knitting together, and forces himself to move. Kakashi is sluggish with horror, both eyes wide and shocked, and Kurama mercilessly takes advantage. One fist snaps out, striking Kakashi's jaw squarely, and the Kopinin goes flying back again, spine slamming into the tree's trunk and skull bouncing off the wood with a loud crack. In the same movement, Kurama twists, ignoring the spots of darkness that dance across his eyes, and snatches Naruto up in his arms. The little boy yelps, clearly startled, but Kurama can't comfort him yet. Before Kakashi can recover he turns and flees, each step jolting his wound, but Naruto clutched tightly to him. Behind them there's a shout, but the world is already starting to blur past with their speed, and Kurama isn't about to stop. They reach the wall in a moment, and Kurama clears it with a long bound, lands, and immediately hurls himself into the surrounding forest. His Naruto once knew every inch of these woods, and that Kurama has managed to remember clearly. Even with Konoha Nin in pursuit, even injured, Kurama knows he can outrun and outmaneuver them here. There's blood soaking his new shirt, sticky and clammy against his skin, and his breath rasps in his throat, each one hurting like there's a knife in his lungs. Small hands clutch at his collar, his hair, even as a face presses into the curve of his neck, and Kurama grips Naruto to him with his uninjured arm, holds him tight to his uninjured side, and runs as fast as he can force himself to. It's only when they're miles from Konoha, in the dimness of a deeply shadowed grove, that Kurama finally allows himself to stagger to a stop. His muscles are trembling, though he can't tell if it's from adrenaline or exertion. Either way, he drops to his knees with a groan of relief, carefully easing Naruto to the ground in front of him. Vaguely he realizes that his head is spinning, but he can't focus on that. Instead, he looks at the boy in front of him, who has tear tracks on his cheeks and wide eyes. "Are you okay?" he demands, as gently as he's able. "Naruto, are you okay? Did we hurt you?" Blue eyes turn up to him, and Kurama can read both confusion and wonder in them. Naruto pauses, then smiles, and it makes Kurama's breath catch painfully, makes his heart trip over itself as it beats. "I'm fine," he insists. "Don't worry about me." That's it. That's Naruto's smile, his real one. And regardless of whether this Naruto knows him or not, he's giving it to Kurama anyway. With a choked sob, Kurama drags Naruto forward into a hug, pulling the boy tight against his chest and burying his face in blonde hair. "Naruto," he whispers. "Naruto, Naruto. Oh, thank the sage. I was so scared." There's a hesitation, and then arms twine around his neck, gripping tightly. "I'm okay," Naruto repeats. "Sorry, Aji-san. I just wanted you guys to stop fighting. I'm sorry I scared you." "I wouldn't have hurt him," Kurama promises, "and it's only slightly untrue. I didn't want them to take you away from me. I finally found you, Naruto, I can't give you up again." Small hands so small, so breakable when Kurama is used to his old juggernaut of a Jinchuriki tug lightly on his hair, and Kurama reluctantly pulls back to look Naruto in the eyes. There's a mulish set to his features, and once he's sure he has Kurama's attention, Naruto declares fiercely, "I was worried about you. You're really my uncle, right?" Of course. He doesn't know Kakashi yet at best, the Jounin is a stranger on the street. Given Kurama's declaration of shared blood, it makes sense for an orphan boy who's never known his family to be drawn to that. Even so, despite all the logical explanations, Kurama feels warmth flood through him like sunlight, and he smiles. Reaching up, he smooths a hand over Naruto's flyaway hair, even worse from the wind of their flight, and then leans in to press a kiss to his forehead. "Thank you, Naruto," he says quietly. "I'm sorry I grabbed you and ran like that. I wasn't thinking." Another bad decision, and even more than facing Kakuzu unprepared, this one was unspeakably stupid. He just made himself a fugitive from Konoha, one every shinobi in the village will be eager to capture. After all, the Jinchuriki are powerful weapons, and Kurama just made off with one. Beyond that, he was moving entirely on desperation and instinct. There was little reason behind the fight, and with the terrified fury finally ebbing, Kurama can see that. But how could he have chosen differently? They were going to take Naruto away from him. Kakashi tried, and Kurama wasn't willing to suffer a separation like that, even in the name of his goals. Because Naruto was sad, hurting, and the loneliness in him echoed Kurama's. There was no way Kurama could have stayed there, watched Kakashi pull Naruto away, and not reacted badly. It feels overwhelming now, the scope of this change. Naruto is meant to be in Konoha, learning and growing, suffering, because Kurama will never again allow himself to forget that much, making friends and connections. And now Kurama has taken him away from that, away from the safety of the village, when he may shortly end up with the entire Akatsuki organization on his tail. Taken him into danger, into a situation where Kurama has no food, no home, and a rapidly decreasing amount of money. His eyes burn. There was no good decision there, no way to win. Maybe, if he'd managed to restrain himself in the beginning, things might have been fine, but there was absolutely no chance of Kurama not reacting to Naruto's loneliness. He'd carve his own heart out before he left Naruto to that pain. Sorry, he whispers, his voice ragged, and presses his cheek to Naruto's palm. Thank you. Yes, I'm your uncle. I'm your family. Naruto beams, leaning forward and hugging him, for the first time of his own volition. Akin. He says enthusiastically. Can I call you that? Despite himself, Kurama laughs. Laughs even as tears slip down his cheeks, because this is Naruto, because Naruto already likes him, and he answers, anything you want, Naruto. Anything. He's never spoken truer words. Even with Konoha after them, even on the run and entirely unprepared for it, Kurama has Naruto again. And for that, to keep Naruto beside him for the rest of time, Kurama will do absolutely anything, and not regret it for a moment. Kakashi's fairly sure he has a concussion. There's a certain dizzying sort of pain that he's far too familiar with, and his vision keeps graying out around the edges when he moves too fast. That's a large part of the reason he's only just extricating himself from a dent in the tree trunk when the Hokage sweeps in, face set in grim lines, and an ANBU contingent around him. Kakashi? He asks sharply, and the tightly contained lash of his chakra is enough to make even Kakashi shiver. Hokage-sama, he answers as steadily as he's able, even as one of the ANBU slips forward to press a green glowing hand against his skull. The ache recedes, and he breathes out a silent sigh of relief. Uzumaki is gone, and he took Naruto. I attempted to stop him, but failed. The word leaves a bitter taste on his tongue. Failed, the same way he failed to save Obito, save Rin. The same way he failed to keep his promise to Minato and make sure his son stayed safe. He was not quite relaxed around Kurama, but his guard slipped. Seeing him with Naho, seeing him in the street last night, he'd thought he understood the Uzumaki, thought he had seen enough to judge. Apparently he failed at that too. Politely constrained fury darkens the Sandame's eyes, even as he folds his hands behind his back. I see, he says after a long moment. Were you able to discover his motivations, by any chance? Kakashi has never seen wonder of the type that was on Kurama's face when Naruto first came into view. He remembers, too, the way gruff, aloof Kurama openly wept when he finally spoke to the boy. There's no way to fake that kind of emotion, and even though Kakashi knows intellectually that he should be suspicious of that, at least he can't be. It's been a long time since he's seen such genuine feeling, and it's unmistakable. He claimed to be Naruto's uncle, he finally offers. I don't think he planned to see Naruto or even knew he was here. He said he recognized Naruto because of his chakra's similarities to Kushina's. And he didn't get violent until I attempted to separate him from Naruto. Sarutobi doesn't ask if he believes it. Kakashi would say outright if he didn't. Instead, he sighs softly, rubbing a hand over his brow. And the fight? He's dangerous, Kakashi answers promptly, though Sarutobi can likely guess as much just looking at the destruction around them. He doesn't need hand signs to use very strong katon jutsus, and he as Kakashi winces, stumbling over what he wants to say, but at the Hokage's sharp glance reluctantly finishes, it looks like Minato's Rasengan, only black and purple rather than imbued with wind chakra. And he can adjust the size, as well as summon multiple spheres. Another hesitation, and then Kakashi adds, he was trying very hard not to kill me. And when Naruto stepped between us, he chose to take my Raikiri to the back rather than put Naruto in danger. Grimness slides into thoughtful consideration, and the Hokage nods carefully. I would believe that Kurama has been otherwise very much alone. Perhaps seeing a relative was enough to unbalance him. He tips his head faintly, glancing up at Kakashi. I don't recall Kushina ever mentioning a brother, but we were not overly close. Did you ever hear anything? Kakashi shrugs, hiding a wince when the massive bruise developing up and down his spine twinges. Her father disappeared when she was a toddler, he offers. Up and left. Given Yuzushiyo's location, it's possible he ended up in Lightning Country and had another kid. Kurama said that he had 8 brothers, not a sister, but that could be because they were half-siblings rather than full. Or he's just distantly related, but didn't want to confuse Naruto. It might even be possible that Kurama made his way to Uzushio before it fell, and started his career as a shinobi there. Sarutobi agrees. It would explain his knowledge of ANBU code and the fact that he and Kushina apparently met. Perhaps she never knew, and the village was lost before he could tell her. He sighs, folds his hands in front of him, and shakes his head faintly. But enough guesswork. Until we have more information, Uzumaki Kurama is a dangerous enemy holding one of our most valuable assets hostage. Kakashi, I'm assigning you the track and capture mission. Take Itachi, Shisui, and Tenzo, find Naruto, and bring him back. If it's possible, take Kurama prisoner. If not, you are authorized to use lethal force. I want Naruto brought home at any cost. Yes, sir, Kakashi answers simply, dipping into a quick bow, and the Hokage inclines his head and sweeps away. Straightening slowly, Kakashi drags in a shaky breath, holds it for a count of 3, and then releases it. The mission settles into his mind, and Kakashi forces himself to push aside all thoughts of Kurama with Naho, Kurama's face when Kakashi called him a comrade, Kurama's expression of sheer, aching joy as he wrapped Naruto in a hug. Box up the monster, wipe off the blood, paste on a smile, and no one will ever know anything's happened. Do it in reverse and the monster is suddenly all that's left. All that remains is the mission, and that part Kakashi isn't going to let himself fail. Not this time. Not again. Chapter 9, Bellicose. Despite what recent actions might make one assume, Kurama's not an idiot. He's very, very much not an idiot, and actually considers himself quite clever. He might even go so far as to say very intelligent, should he be asked. The blame for his most recent lapses can be laid firmly at Naruto's door, and Kurama doesn't plan to allow himself many more. Given all of this, Kurama is fully aware that he can't take a 6-year-old Jinchuriki Akatsuki hunting with him. Even beyond the danger, there's the simple logistics of it. Kurama has no food, no clothes beyond those he's wearing, no one in all the world to turn to. There's only him, only Naruto, all his bridges back to Konoha most thoroughly burned by now. He only has himself to rely on, because Naruto's only 6 and can't yet help him, can hardly even use chakra right now, and most certainly can't be expected to take care of himself while Kurama hunts down those who want to kill him. The smart thing to do would be to take him back to Konoha, or even just leave the boy where he is. There's no chance that the Hokage hasn't sent out pursuers, after all, and let him grow up in peace while Kurama finishes his mission. Then, maybe, he can bargain his way back into the village, and be a part of Naruto's life. This is another one of those stupid decisions Kurama's going to make. He can't let Naruto go, not if there's a chance he'll never get to see him again. And he can't, not now that he's set himself up as family. Naruto is his, and he's Naruto's. Konoha hasn't managed to get its collective head out of its collective ass yet, so the kid stays with him. Period. Kurama's not about to let him grow up in misery when there's anything at all he can do to prevent it. Still, that stupidity doesn't extend to dragging a practically defenseless 6-year-old to the mountain's graveyard with him, right into the waiting arms of 7 people who'd kill him the moment they got the chance. He's not about to let Konoha have him, either, so just about his only choice is to find somewhere safe to stash Naruto for the time being. Somewhere he can be happy, and if Kurama had thought about it he'd have grabbed Sasuke and Sakura on his way out too. After all, kidnapping a clan head's son and the daughter of 2 well-respected chunin could hardly make things worse than they already are, having made off with a pint-sized Jinchuriki, and Kurama is aware of just how much those 2 will come to mean to Naruto. He's determined that, at least, isn't going to change, no matter what he has to do to ensure it. 1 brat instead of 3 is a hell of a lot easier to haul around, though, for which Kurama is definitely grateful. With a sigh he tugs the heavy Haori up a little, covering Naruto more completely. It's not nearly as cold as the Earth Country border, but there's still a bone-deep bite to the air once you stop moving. Kurama's feeling it right now. He dropped the bag with his new clothes back in Konoha, all but the Haori, and he's now blessing whatever foresight made him pull it on. Him being cold is fine, but he's not about to make Naruto suffer through the same thing. Kurama's fairly certain there's a bit of a buffer between them and any hunters. He's fast, after all, and when he left he was fleeing blindly, a fox's instinct to get away from the enemy driving him in a zigzagging line. There's at least enough time to let Naruto sleep for a bit, since the kid seemed bone-tired. Not that Kurama blames him, it's not every day you get kidnapped by family that appears out of nowhere. With a low, heavy breath, he sinks to the ground next to Naruto, stretching his legs out in front of him, and trying to ease some of the tension from his shoulders. Han's heavily abused shirt now has a charred, ragged-edged hole punched through it, as well as a new saturation of blood soaking it, but Kurama manages to pull and tuck the oversized edges enough that it's mostly invisible. Now the only thing left to focus on is the future. This, at least, should be familiar. Kurama has spent the better part of the last century plotting and planning, curled up in a human soul and waiting for the future to bring his freedom. But there was an edge of certainty to that, a knowledge that nothing would change even if he failed. Right now, if he fails, he'll lose Naruto, and that's not acceptable. Still, Naruto smiled at him. Naruto likes him, and even if the boy doesn't love him yet, Kurama knows his Jinchuriki. He's precious to Naruto just for having claimed a connection, and love will follow shortly. Naruto's big heart has always been his best feature. It will hurt to separate from the boy, even temporarily, and the mere thought of it is like needles digging under Kurama's skin, prying up whatever composure he's managed by the roots. Better to separate for a short time, though, than have Naruto stolen from him forever, either by Akatsuki or Konoha. And this way Kurama will know that Naruto is safe, well out of any enemy's grasp. Which just leaves the problem of where to put him. With a groan, Kurama rakes his fingers through his hair, slumping forward over his bent knees and trying to think. He doesn't know anyone in this world, so far out of his own time. There's no one to turn to, no one to rely on. The only people he's met are Kakashi, Sarutobi, and Han and Kokuo. Kurama's first instinct is to seize on the idea and run with it, but it's not that great, actually. After all, Kakuzu was hunting Kokuo, or came across him by chance, and either way, that means the bijou is now firmly in Akatsuki's crosshairs. Kurama is inclined to trust Han, especially since Kokuo was actually working with him to drive Kakuzu off, and he knows that Kokuo is shy and quiet, but steady, but leaving Naruto with them would be almost the same as dragging him along to the mountain's graveyard. Still, the idea sparks another, and Kurama immediately thinks of one of his Naruto's best friends, tall and slender, and as red-haired as any Uzumaki, for all that he doesn't know of any blood connections. Gaara is, admittedly, the same age as Naruto right now, but, well, maybe Kurama can beat some sense into Shikaku. The damned Tanuki has been calling himself Gaara's mother, it's about time he lived up to that claim. And Naruto adored Gaara in his time, loved him like a brother, and one of his first real friends. Kurama's not about to steal that from the kid, even if it means massive changes to the timeline. Well, the first time around didn't work out so well. Might as well upend everything for a second try, right? So. It will take a bit of doing and probably some skull-denting, but for all that Shikaku is a prissy bastard, he's still Kurama's brother. And Kurama knows that Shikaku mourned when Gaara died, in his own bloody way. He'd grown reckless afterwards, plunging into fights he should have kept back from, and that was how Kagaya caught him. A bad reaction to Gaara's death, Kurama thinks, and after these last few days dealing with Naruto's death he won't be convinced otherwise. A short distance away, the bushes rustle. Kurama's head snaps up automatically, his ears straining. There's no sense of human chakra, though, only natural, and he frowns, rising to his feet. The rustling continues, more like thrashing now, quiet and desperate, and with one last, quick glance at Naruto, who's sleeping calmly, Kurama slips soundlessly towards the source of the noise. Around a tree, down a short hill, the undergrowth is waving. It's a bramble, long thorns clear even in the darkening twilight gloom, and Kurama can just make out a flash of scarlet fur between the branches. Well, that's all right then. Hey, Kurama says softly, crouching down beside the quivering bramble. Looks like you've gotten yourself into a bit of a mess, kid. Mind if I help you out there? There's a pause, careful and considering, and the small red fox twists to look at him, slit-pupiled amber eyes sharp and wary. Kurama raises an expectant brow, but doesn't otherwise move, and after a long moment the fox gives a yip of nearly desperate agreement. With a soft snort, Kurama pushes his hands through the tightly woven branches, wincing as sharp thorns dig long furrows in his skin, but doesn't hesitate. There are more thorns dug deep into the fox's thick undercoat, knitted into the fur so thoroughly that even Kurama, with the advantage of opposable thumbs, has a hard time working them out. Still working on that second tail, huh? Kurama asks over the sound of the fox's small grumbles of discomfort, trying to distract it. You should head to Mount Inari if you want it to go quicker. I've heard there's better hunting there too. The fox barks at him reprovingly, apparently offended by the idea of taking such a shortcut, and Kurama rolls his eyes in response. Yeah, what do I know, right? I'm just the QB no Kitsune, haven't got a clue about any of this fox stuff. He snaps the last branch, carefully working it out of the fox's fur, and then withdraws his hands. There's blood covering the backs of them, all the way up past his wrists, but the scratches are shallow and already healing. There you go. Try it now. In a blur of scarlet, the fox wriggles out of the bush and into the open, shaking itself briskly. It turns, regarding Kurama carefully, and then slips over to him. A long tongue flicks out, taking a quick lick of the blood on his fingers before it barks again. You're welcome, Kurama answers because he knows a thank you when he hears one. Be a little more careful next time, all right. The fox yips, turning to present its back in clear offer, and Kurama can't help giving a soft huff of laughter. You're sure? He asks pointedly. I don't know, kid, you might not survive having a human touch you. Well, more or less a human. But why risk it? This time the fox doesn't answer, just gives him an impatient look, and Kurama shakes his head, but obediently reaches out, smoothing his hand over thick fur. Wish you had that second tail, he says a little wistfully. I could really use someone to vent to right now. But I'm glad I could help. Don't let anyone catch you getting into trouble, okay? It gives a guttural chatter, clearly amused with the order, and then turns and vanishes with a flick of its white-tipped tail. Kurama watches it go before he pushes back to his feet. There's still no sense of approaching chakra, so he doesn't rush as he heads up to the small campsite, though he doesn't dawdle either. Naruto is still asleep, and though Kurama would like to let him sleep right through the night, he doesn't dare. Kakashi will probably be the one sent out after them, and he's a tracker. Kurama needs to put even more distance between them if he's going to have a hope of throwing him off the scent long enough to make it to Suna. It feels good to have a goal though. Naruto was never much of one for plans, and honestly Kurama can't say that he is either, but this whole thing is so slapdash and desperate that it feels like finally grounding himself, to settle on a path. Come on, Naruto, he murmurs softly, sliding his hands underneath the boy's shoulders and knees. You don't have to get up right now, just let me pick you up. We need to get going. Aken? Naruto asks sleepily, but he doesn't resist when Kurama settles him against his shoulder again. One arm loops around his neck, making Kurama's breath catch at the simple sweetness of it, and a moment later a head of messy yellow hair is tucked underneath his chin. Can we get ramen for dinner? Fuck. Food is going to be a problem. Kurama hasn't eaten since the inn, and his stomach feels uncomfortably hollowed out. Tanzakugai is too close to Konoha for them to risk doubling back, so Kurama is just going to have to hope he can catch something or find a house. He still has money, so maybe a farmer will be willing to part with his lunch. I'll try, kid, he says helplessly. Sorry. We won't make it to Suna for another couple of days, but I'll try to find a town somewhere and get you ramen. There's a pause as Naruto seems to come a little more awake, and he tips his head to look up at Kurama through one sky blue eye. Suna? He asks interestedly. Then he hesitates and asks, we aren't gonna go back to Konoha? If I take you back, they won't let me see you again, Kurama says, and Osage, phrased like that it sounds so fucking selfish. Do you? He steels himself, takes a breath, and forces himself to think of Naruto, not his own needs. Even as he does so though, he curls a hand in Naruto's bright hair, strokes over the small back, and aches. Do you want to go back? If you think you'll be happier there, I can take you. Naruto pulls back to look at him fully, and he looks far too serious for a 6-year-old. In mimicry of Kurama's own movements, he reaches out and twists his fingers into blood-red hair, holding tightly. Will you come with me? He asks solemnly. Kurama feels a little like he wants to cry again. I can't, he says, and that's helpless too. I promised my best friend I'd do something for him, and I have to finish it. If I go back to Konoha, they'll treat me like an enemy and lock me up, and I promised. Naruto, as ever, understands the value of a promise. He looks torn for a moment before the stubbornness sets in again, and he offers, if I tell Hokage Gigi that you're not a bad guy, will you come back? He'll believe me, I know it. The implication is all too clear. There's a fist around Kurama's heart, tight and getting tighter, but it isn't hard to realize what he has to do. No, the hard part is actually forcing himself to follow through. Sorry, he whispers, arms tightening involuntarily. Sorry, Naruto, I'll take you back. Maybe the Sandaime will listen. You'll probably be better off there. Fuck, but it aches. How had he ever thought he could steal a glance at Naruto, and then go on his way without a care? Not even half a day with Naruto returned to him, and already Kurama feels like he's losing him all over again just contemplating letting him go. It's a little like dying, knowing that Naruto would rather be in Konoha than with him, even though Kurama is fully aware that Naruto has no reason to stay. Another moment of silence and then Naruto says, but don't you want to go back, Aken? With confusion clear in his voice. What? What? Kurama asks, pulling back to look at the boy. Naruto is frowning at him. But you look so sad, he says, touching Kurama's cheek gently. Aken, aren't you sad about leaving the village? Isn't that why you want to go back? There's a flicker of nearly extinguished hope in Kurama's chest. No, he answers quickly. No, Naruto, you're my home, not the village. I don't care about them as long as you're happy. I want you to stay with me, I swear. That's all I want. Then I'll stay, Naruto says cheerfully, as though it's as simple as that. Hokage Gigi will be sad, but we can send him a letter and ask if he'll tell everyone you're not a bad guy, and I can become an awesome ninja, and when we go back they'll have to make me Hokage. Then I'll make it a law that you're allowed to stay and no one will care. Whether he's 6, 16, or 36, Naruto's logic always sounds exactly the same. Kurama laughs before he can help it, and leans in to kiss Naruto squarely on the forehead. A moment later the giddy joy is too much, and he spins Naruto around in his arms, still laughing. Naruto laughs too, bright and delighted, and it's so very much everything that Kurama has missed. Thanks, he says. Thanks, Naruto. Come on, let's go find you some chakra. A flare of it, a tight little knot filled not so much with malevolence as it is determination, though there's a thread of undeniable hatred in there too. Familiar chakra, and Kurama curses, spinning on his heel. He leaps upward, into the branches of the tree above them, and sets Naruto at the highest sturdy branch he can get to. Stay here and be as quiet as you can, he warns. Let's see how good you are at ninja stealth, okay? Naruto's eyes are a little bit wide, but he nods agreeably all the same, making a motion like he's zipping his mouth shut. Kurama gives him a relieved smile, ruffles his hair, and then uses the tip of one claw to scratch a seal onto the trunk below him. It pulses once, then fades to a pale glow that will hopefully be missed, and Kurama throws himself back towards the ground. His extends his senses, but Naruto is completely hidden, from the sound of his breathing to the feel of his chakra, and though Kurama wishes he had the time to be more thorough, that will have to do. If he can distract the trackers, it will be enough. It has to be. Even as he veers east and breaks into a run, he casts his attention back, trying to judge the size of the group. It's hard, because only Kakashi is truly angry, all the others are some flavor of determined, and emotions like that slide from Kurama's grasp before he can really touch them. Still, they're almost close enough for him to sense normally, and he's fairly certain there are 4 of them. He's even more certain that 3 of the 4 are all too familiar. Kakashi, of course, is easy to mark, and Kurama hadn't really expected anything else. Obviously the Jounin was going to pursue him, that's simple logic. But right behind him is a familiar trickle of power that registers like the biting sharp scent of new sap rising to Kurama's nose, and that's a bad sign. Naruto's second sensei, the baby Mokotan user, which would be bad enough on its own, but one step behind him is the mirrors and smoke feel of one particular brat whose presence really means Kurama is screwed. And as if that's not enough, there's the itch of another, unfamiliar Uchiha right behind Itachi. Really? Mokotan, and not 1 but 2.5 Sharingan all at once. If Kurama had to design his worst day ever, it would probably go something like this. This would all be so much easier if he could just turn into a 20-story fox and sit on them. The group is moving quickly, obviously having spotted his chakra, and Kurama gives a low growl of frustration and redoubles his pace, leaping fallen trees and ducking low branches as he races towards the rushing rumble of a river in the distance. He's too late to throw them off his scent by crossing it, but with any luck, not that Kurama honestly expects to have much, he can knock them into it with a hurricane or something. Whatever. He's still working on a plan, but it'll come to him. He's out of time though. Just as he breaks through the last stretch of trees and into the open ground before the river, a wall of wood shoots up in front of him and forces Kurama to leap aside before he brains himself. Even as he lands, fire roars towards him, vast enough to swallow him whole. There's no time to dodge, no chance to avoid it, and so Kurama doesn't try. He plants his feet and lets his chakra surge, because fire is his element. There's always the chance that it can hurt him, but like this. Prepared and braced, with sufficient warning? Kurama is a god of fire and wind, of devastation, and even being trapped in a fragile mortal body can't take that away from him entirely. He steals the flames before they can even touch him, wraps himself in their light and heat, and laughs as his hunters leap from the trees to confront him. The fire roars, leaping and crackling, and Kurama lets it swirl away, lets his chakra devour and consume it like fuel. Their eyes are wary and startled, and Kurama grins, bloody bright and showing teeth. Come for a rematch, Hatake? He mocks. How cute. And you even brought friends this time. But face me again and I warn you, I'm not going to hold back. I could swear I won last time, Kakashi says mildly, and it's almost impressive how well he manages to hide the anger seething inside of him. Where's Naruto, Uzumaki? If that's even your name. I didn't lie to you, Kurama snaps, bristling. Naruto is mine, my blood, mine to care for. I won't let him grow up an outcast just because you're terrified if the Kyuubi. I love him more than anything in the world, and I'm not about to let him suffer. Kakashi's shoulders draw into a slightly tenser line. So you do know, he says softly. Kurama snorts. That he's a Jinchuriki? I know better than anyone. You blind fools will never understand even the smallest portion of what it means to be a Jinchuriki, but I do. And I'll make sure Naruto does too. You want to punish him for it? Cast him out? Fine. But I'll teach Naruto just what it really means to wield the power of a bijou. Kakashi must give some sort of signal he doesn't see, because half a heartbeat later the ground explodes underneath him, spears of wood and grasping roots trying to knot around his limbs. Kurama swears viciously, leaping clear and whirling to slash one hand downward. Waves of force smash into the reaching branches, shattering them into sawdust, and Kurama flips in the air, coming down right in front of Itachi and lashing out with a scything kick. The Uchiha ducks, darting away, but Kurama doesn't attempt to follow. He vaults a trio of kunai, touches down in front of the unfamiliar Uchiha, and rises with an uppercut leading. The boy is too surprised to dodge and goes flying, and Kurama slips around another ball of flames and casts his own right back. 4-against-1 isn't something he'd have had trouble with in his bijou form, but as a human? The odds suck balls. Thankfully, Kurama knows a way to fix that. Balancing and compressing chakra for a Bijudama is simple. This is beyond that. It's like breathing, or blinking, entirely involuntary and unthinking. Fingers up, chakra flaring, and a shadow clone mirrors Kurama, as he leaps back towards the river. It's tempting to go for Naruto's usual overkill and summon 1,000 of the things, but Kurama doesn't quite dare. He's not sure how his chakra will react with the clones, given that he's a bijou, and beyond that he's a manifestation of anger and malice. He doesn't want evil, mindless little versions of the Kyuubi running around. While that would definitely distract his hunters, it probably wouldn't be good in the long run. The clone splits off, heading for Itachi, and Kurama wishes it luck as he spins to avoid Kakashi's kunai. The blade just manages to skim his hair before Kurama lunges forward, knocking Kakashi's arm wide with an elbow, and then driving a knee into his side. Even as Kakashi chokes and staggers, more roots burst from the ground, reaching for Kurama's limbs. He snarls and tears his way free, then throws himself towards the Mokuton user, who has his hands raised in a seal, and an expression of grim concentration on his face. When he sees Kurama coming, dark eyes narrow further, and the hand seal shifts. Another wooden wall bursts up, this time curving into a dome around him. Kurama's claws tear gouges in it, nowhere deep enough to even begin doing real damage, but he doesn't have time to try again. Kakashi is on his heels, kunai out and slashing. Damn you! Kurama hisses, sliding under the blow. He comes up with a weak shockwave, still not aiming to kill, and feels a rush of pure frustration when Kakashi disappears into the ground, swallowed up by his own earth jutsu. At the same moment, a thick beam of wood shoots right at his gut, catching him hard in the stomach. Kurama loses all of his breath in an explosive rush as he's lifted right off his feet, ribs creaking threateningly, and goes flying back into the trunk of a tree. Beneath him, the earth erupts, and Kakashi grabs his ankle, yanking down. Kurama automatically kicks him in the face, earning a loud yelp, and then lunges for the Mokuton user again. The man spins away from his claws, leg lashing out, but Kurama ducks the high kick and slams bodily into him, one hand fisting in his uniform. A snarl, a surge of effort, and Kurama hurls the man directly into the unfamiliar Uchiha, right as the boy is calling up a fireball. Tenzo! Kakashi shouts, and a moment later a dragon of fire slams into the ground where Kurama had been standing. Kurama whirls past it, bringing his claws to bear, and almost succeeds in slicing Kakashi across the face. The Kopinin dodges at the last second, managing to avoid all but a shallow scrap across his chin, and Kurama lashes out with a snarl. Naruto is mine! He roars. Stop trying to take him away. Wind screams past him, sharp-edged like blades and fueled by rage and chakra in equal measure. It knocks Kakashi right off his feet, dispels Kurama's clone in a puff of smoke, and sends the two Uchiha staggering. It's a small opening, but it's an opening nevertheless, and if Kurama can move fast enough, maybe set a fire behind him, he'll have enough time to get to Naruto, and then hightail it for the Suna border. He turns to run, but before he can take more than a single step, branches like steel cables catch him. They twist around his limbs, his torso, catch him in their choking grasp and drag him down to his knees even as he screams in rage, claws slashing ineffectually at thin air before they're immobilized. Shursui, Kakashi orders, a whip crack of sound in the hurricane's wake as he staggers to his feet. Captain, the Uchiha acknowledges, stepping into Kurama's line of vision. His dark eyes spin to red, shifting into a kaleidoscope of ebony and crimson, and Kurama knows all too well what that means. He snarls a denial, struggles redoubling as creepers lock his head into place, but he's well and truly trapped. The only thing he can see is that hated dojutsu, already striping away his will in a surge of bone-deep horror. Just those eyes, red and black and rising to swallow him in a tide of fear and loathing. Kurama meets them helplessly, hatefully, and can only think, Sage, not again. That's it for this reading. Hit like and subscribe for a free ticket pass going to the different worlds of anime fanfictions. Looking forward to having you on board again.